My sister Mary is 14 and my mom Sarah is suffocating her with nostalgia for my brother's failures. She'll end up like Eddy, my mother fears, but Mary is thriving with me. I warned one day she'll resent you, yet that truth echoes unheard. Will history repeat itself? Warning, long post ahead. The entire situation is causing me frustration and I just need to express my feelings. Some background for context. My parents married and had me at a young age. My mother, 30 years old female Sarah, married my father, 52 years old male Martin, when she was 17 and had me when she was 19. My brother, 24 years old male Eddy, was born when I was almost 6, and our sister, 14 years old female Mary, was born much later. By the time she arrived, I was already dating my current husband, 32 years old male Walter. We have been together for almost 15 years now. My parents separated when Mary was about to turn 6, which was a very traumatic experience for everyone involved, as we were all subjected to the constant abuse from my father. My sister and I have cut off contact with him, but my brother still maintains a relationship with him, albeit a strained one. My mother interacts with him as little as possible and remarried about 3 years ago. Fortunately, Mary was too young to have experienced any violence or abuse from Martin. He was still very caring toward her, which was not the case for Eddy, who suffered constant beatings as punishment. And my mother and I endured severe psychological abuse from him until their separation and even for some time afterward. Those were difficult years, but we all managed to move on. Despite being a victim herself, my mother subjected me to her own form of abuse. For as long as I can remember, she has made it her mission to raise me as the ideal child, perfectly obedient, achieving perfect grades, being the perfect sister, daughter, granddaughter, niece, you name it. My infancy and adolescence were filled with emotional repression, anxiety, and people-pleasing behaviors to avoid meltdowns and abuse. Consequently, I was always very well-behaved, earned good grades, and never caused any trouble at home. Today, I have completed college, hold a good job, and maintain a relatively comfortable life, but the abuse from both parents has left me emotionally repressed, fragile, and extremely socially anxious. I have undergone therapy for these issues and have cut Martin out of my life while also confronting my mother openly. I have established many necessary boundaries that were never honored during my youth. Presently, my relationship with her is positive, built on mutual respect, and she has significantly changed how she interacts with me. My siblings joke that I am the favorite child because she tends to listen to me more and treats me more as an equal. On the other hand, my brother was not raised in the same way. My mother favored him, and the rules that applied to me did not apply to him. Much of the responsibility for caring for him fell on me as we grew older, and my mother seldom punished him, if at all, for misbehaving far worse than I would have ever dared. My brother disliked school, had his groundings shortened, received poor grades, and even failed a year without any measures or consequences enforced by my mother. Martin would beat him for misbehavior, but my brother had long ceased to care and believed the punishment was worth it if it meant he could do as he pleased. Consequently, Eddy exploited his incompetence and was never expected to help with chores at home or even with my sister entirely relying on me until she was 5. This resulted in him becoming irresponsible, reckless, and emotionally damaged. He also developed a computer addiction, which persists to this day. He is now engaged, has a child, and holds a good job, but this positive development is quite recent. Prior to that, he presented my mother with a multitude of challenges. He resisted working, lied about everything, and even abandoned jobs altogether. He was expelled from the house twice, and our mother was losing hope, trying to rely on me to fix things, which I quickly shut down. Although she had given up hope when things began to improve, his behavior over the years has led her to believe that my sister will follow in his footsteps. That is where my frustration arises. Although Mary was a handful when she was younger, i.e. misbehaving, typical childhood antics, she has always been kind, intelligent, and a very good child. She is respectful, studious, and both my brother and I share a strong bond with her. We feel very protective of her because we do not want her to experience any form of injustice or abuse as we did. Unfortunately, Mary has also encountered her own challenges. After I left home to live independently and later with my husband, my mother had to rely heavily on family support to provide for my siblings and rebuild her life after the separation. This largely involved my aunt, 53 years old, female Erica, and both of my grandmothers, one of whom 72 years old female Diva lives with Erica. My aunt has no children and is unmarried. She helped raise one of our cousins, 28 years old female, the only child of my now-deceased younger aunt, who is now married and living independently. From the time my sister turned 6 until very recently, my aunt has been heavily involved in both her education and upbringing. However, my aunt is even stricter than my mother ever was with me. My cousin has her own horror stories, but my aunt approaches child-rearing as if you are in the military. She believes that children today lack intelligence, are being ruined by televisions and cell phones, and must be governed with an iron fist to become decent contributors to society. Extreme obedience is required. No television, no cell phones, study all day and complete all household chores, stop reading books endlessly, go do something else. Participate in extracurricular activities that you do not want to engage in, but since I am paying for them, you must do them and be grateful. Why are you not happy? Do not cry, stop being weak. Be silent and do not talk back to me. Do not like it, have a meltdowns. As my mother struggled to rebuild her life, Mary's upbringing was mostly entrusted to my aunt. My mother went through a period of financial dependence on her, and even now she is hesitant to confront Erica about how she treats my sister, which is extreme to say the least. As a result, Mary has learned that expecting our mother to defend her or come to her aid is futile, and she has instead sought help from me and now my brother as well. As my aunt's unreasonable behavior escalated, I ultimately managed to convince my mother to allow Mary to change schools so that she could stay at my house during the day instead of at my aunt's. My husband works from home, and they have always gotten along well. I have always intervened for my sister whenever possible. I argue with my mother, convincing her that she is sometimes too harsh or unreasonable, and remind her that she punishes Mary for mistakes Eddy made during his youth. My mother and aunt are so afraid that Mary will suddenly morph into the Eddy of the past that they are preemptively restricting her from anything they perceive as responsible for his bad behavior, instead of recognizing that the fault lies entirely with his upbringing. Mary is being constrained and prohibited from all directions, despite being far from a troubled child. I have been trying, along with my brother, to show my mother that things do not have to be this way, but this fear still lingers, and on a bad day for my mother, she may revoke freedoms for my sister without any prior justification. I have repeatedly told my mother that one day Mary will resent her, just as she currently resents our aunt. However, it seems that she is not listening, and I am exhausted from trying to prevent this from happening. Since February, my sister has shown significant improvement while staying with us. She appears happier and is moving away from what seemed like a deep depressive downward spiral. We have rules for her, establish structure, and provide everything a teenager needs, but we also listen to her, encourage her interests, and attempt to engage her in activities she enjoys whenever possible. However, my mother does not believe that this is sufficient. She continues to confiscate Mary's phone, even though she cannot use it at school or when I am not home. She insists that Mary interact exhaustively at family gatherings, even though there is no one her age for her to connect with. She keeps saying my sister is a zombie with no interests beyond her phone, even though this could not be further from the truth, and despite my efforts to demonstrate this to her at every opportunity. I am tired, I can only do so much. I am not her mother, I do not have the authority to do many things. But my sister will come to resent her, and the future is much closer than my mother realizes. And I will allow it to occur because I cannot continue to tell my sister to try to understand where her mother is coming from when I can no longer do so myself. My mother is not a bad person. She needs therapy and possibly a diagnosis and should stop listening to what her sister says. However, I am not willing to continuously try to protect her relationship with my sister from damage. I believe she deserves to face some consequences for her actions. Story 2. Caught in a sexless marriage, I pleaded daily for passion only to hear, "It just doesn't do anything for me." After 2 years of trying to bridge our stark desires, I'm left feeling frustrated and rejected. Can this relationship survive when we're worlds apart in bed? My husband and I have been together since high school and have been married for 2 years. We currently share an apartment while I attend college and he works. Aside from the issue I described below, we have a great relationship and love each other deeply. I am personally very sexual and have specific hardcore kinks, but for the most part, we have only been intimate with each other. I see these kinks as an essential part of my life, and they are activities I very much want to engage in. My partner is more conventional in his sexual preferences, and he has expressed that he is open to exploring these kinks. However, he feels they do not elicit a strong response from him. This is where our issue begins. Initially, it seemed he was somewhat willing to try new things. He would approach me for intimacy, and although he was not actively seeking to engage in kink, I felt that he was gradually improving and we would have some decent sexual experiences. A couple of times, I attempted to teach him specific techniques such as tying knots, and although he was not very skilled at it, he seemed to retain a few concepts. Our sex life was improving, if not to the extent I would have liked. However, during a period when we were long distance, I noticed he was gradually losing interest in sex and frequently rejecting my advances. Since we have been back together, this trend has persisted. I now find myself in a situation where I desire sex almost constantly, but I am so accustomed to rejection that when he does agree, I am uncertain about how to proceed. I almost ask for sex daily as part of my routine, even knowing it is unlikely to happen. Occasionally, I will wear something sexy or attempt to initiate something playful, perhaps every 2 weeks, but these efforts rarely succeed. I estimate that we actually have sex approximately once every 7 times I ask. Admittedly, it seems excessive to ask daily, but if I do not ask, it simply never occurs, and if I were to ask weekly, we might engage in sexual activity only once every couple of months. At this point, asking has become habitual, but lately, I have mostly ceased making requests. This has resulted in a cycle where I experience a buildup of rejection once a week, leading to a breakdown and tears. We have discussions about this, but these conversations seldom produce any tangible change. We previously had a counselor, but the therapy sessions did not provide us with the space to address unexamined issues. Instead, it felt more like scheduling discussions we had already held, which were not more beneficial simply because they were conducted in front of a third party. I feel as though I am self-sabotaging by asking for sex so frequently, but if I do not ask, we simply do not engage in sex and I still end up feeling upset. Recently, he seems to be most interested when I indicate that I am particularly busy that day, which may create a psychological allure for him. This forces me into a position where I must either turn him down or prioritize our intimacy over my work. You might assume that if I appeared less desperate, he would be more inclined to engage. However, that is not the case, as I have also gone through long periods without asking, and this pattern seems to be an exception. When we do have sex, I often find it rather unsatisfying. Traditional sex does not excite me much, and performing oral sex in the way he prefers quickly leads to discomfort in my neck. It seems he does little to arouse me, and I reciprocate this lack of enthusiasm. Consequently, we often end up having uninspired sexual encounters. Additionally, I feel uncomfortable requesting physical touch, as I wrestle with feelings of insecurity and selfishness. I believe the insecurity stems from the frequent rejections. Trying hard during intimacy feels as though it results in no meaningful payoff, which leads me to lose motivation, as anything erotically adventurous I attempt is usually met with indifference. Aside from praying, he maintains his erection and reaches climax. On the rare occasions when we engage in a scene, the quality and dynamics are not ideal. We have discussed this, but he is generally reluctant to research how to execute a scene, often depending on me for ideas while failing to offer his own suggestions. Since I already feel insecure about asking for physical affection, you can imagine how challenging it is for me to request particular actions during a scene. Thus, I remain too apprehensive to ask for anything particularly adventurous, which is what I genuinely desire, and we end up engaging in something rather mundane. Concerning consent, he knows precisely what I enjoy, and I do not mind entering a scene without prior discussion, pun intended. However, I understand that we need to have a conversation beforehand to have at least a general idea, but the concepts typically arise solely from me, or he selects from a list of options I have provided to assist him. To give him some credit, he occasionally improvises something interesting, but I generally feel in control. Regrettably, this creates a negative dynamic, as I view kink as a space where I can safely surrender control and follow instructions. However, the reality of our scenes usually involves exhausting exchanges where he is uncertain how to proceed, and I end up taking charge out of necessity, which makes him feel inadequate. Alternatively, he might not execute tasks well, and I attempt to overlook the shortcomings. We have had conversations about this, but he is unwilling to seek online resources for guidance or examples to follow. He seems to prefer my direction, yet I struggle to assist him if he lacks genuine interest. Consequently, I become quite frustrated, and I am sure it feels disheartening for him when we are about to initiate something, and I revert to a critique of a particular issue while appearing visibly annoyed, for example, when a rope around his hands is too tight or a blindfold is positioned incorrectly. At times, I may even emotionally disconnect from the situation entirely. I acknowledge this is my fault, and I could express my feelings more kindly. From my perspective, these seem like minor mistakes, and I often reflect on how long we have been together without him making significant efforts to improve. Instead, he treats actual scenes as practice rather than setting aside time independently to brainstorm ideas or hone skills. I do not entirely blame him for this. It is simply that he is not genuinely interested, and I cannot compel him to be. Due to these issues, our sexual encounters are strictly categorized as successful or unsuccessful, with the latter being the predominant outcome. By unsuccessful, I mean that either he cannot maintain his erection, he becomes discouraged, and we must stop, or I become frustrated and disengage, resulting in a halt to our activities. There is an overwhelming amount of pressure surrounding sex, making both of us nervous to even attempt it, but especially him. We have discussed this extensively. I have been trying to reduce my frustration, however, I still find myself disconnecting when things start to falter. Admittedly, I am uncertain what efforts he has made. At one point, he attempted to establish a specific day of the week for intimacy, but he did not maintain that commitment. Last year, we attended a local sex dungeon for an instructional class, but we left early feeling disappointed because he struggled to keep pace with the instructor. To be fair, The instructor was moving quite quickly, and I ended up compensating for him. I attempted to suppress my frustration, but he could sense it, and I think the situation became overwhelming. I was harsh. We have tried counseling and have had numerous discussions about these issues. I believe he is aware of every point I have articulated in this post. In the past, I suggested exploring an open relationship with extensive restrictions, but he was not comfortable with that for various reasons. I am uncertain about our options. Aside from this matter, we share a wonderful relationship, and I envision us being together as we grow older. This is just one issue I cannot seem to overcome. I am seeking advice from anyone who has experienced something similar or any additional suggestions. I am not looking for simplistic recommendations to end the relationship or pursue counseling, but rather constructive feedback geared towards resolving this issue, including suggestions for improvement from both him and myself. What can we do to enhance our sexual lives? Story 3. In my early 20s, I endured a relationship where I was immature for loving hobbies and not intelligent enough for a master's student. After 3 years, he broke up with me, saying I was mid and not attractive anymore, yet begged for sex later. Why did he treat me better after we ended? This is going to be a long post. I cannot summarize any of this any shorter. It is as concise as it can possibly be without missing important context and details. We are both in our early to mid-20s. I am the younger one. We were together for 3 years and broke up in December. He was enjoyable in the beginning. He was interested in the same things as I was and introduced me to gaming. The first 10 months of our relationship were fun, with a certain childishness to it because, well, we were essentially still kids. He lives with his parents, who are Christian pastors and immigrants to America, but he always stated that religion was not for him and that he did not believe in it. We were also both significantly interested in a specific subgenre of true crime. As the 1-year mark approached, he began to go back to school for a master's degree. I did not even know he was planning on returning to school until he told me he was accepted, saying, "I did not want to tell you before because what if I had not gotten in?" A month prior to that, he mentioned that he did not think I was intelligent, and this perspective continued to worsen over time. For context, I had very poor mental health during my senior year, coupled with the challenges of COVID-19, and despite attending a prestigious high school specifically designed for academically gifted students, I decided that college was not for me. This was one of the reasons he cited for my perceived lack of intelligence. When I did take a semester of online courses, I enrolled in 2 classes with about 3 months to complete them and earn 90s in both. When I shared this with him, he responded, "Well, you only took 2. That was the extent of his acknowledgement. His friends congratulated me and praised my achievements, but he did not. During his first semester at school, he lived in a dormitory. He became irritable and depressed and would be unkind to me multiple times. At one point, he forced me to sleep on the floor so he could have the entire twin bed to himself, claiming it was too small for both of us. I am a petite woman and he is of average height, perhaps slightly above average for a male. I did not want to go home, so I slept on the floor. He rarely complimented me. It was like pulling teeth to get him to say I was cute and cool and stuff." An actual quote. He never apologized verbally because words do not mean anything. Actions are what matter. Whenever I expressed that I was anxious or feeling any negative emotion, he would tell me to just stop being anxious, sad, angry, without offering any further input or support. He stated that he loved me 5 times during the entire relationship, all within 3 or 4 months, 5 perhaps, but that is stretching it honestly. After that, he never said it again, except for one instance when I implored him to say it, and he told me he would if I picked up the food he ordered. Even then, it was like pulling teeth. He asserted that he should not have to say it, "You should just know that I do. You sound insecure by always needing validation and reassurance." This brings me to another point. He labeled me as insecure about everything. He would visit the Instagram accounts of my now ex-female friends in front of me or with me on a call and call them pretty, saying their bodies were more attractive than mine, while simultaneously telling me that I should not let any of this bother me and that I was insecure for feeling that it did. He frequently called me flat. I do not have a large posterior, but it is not completely flat. He made jokes about it continually. He also frequently labeled me as immature. He referred to my non-serious hobbies as immature and a waste of time. If I recounted any drama involving friends, family, or even discussed my interests that did not engage him, he would dismiss them as stupid or immature and express his disinterest in hearing about them. However, he expected me to listen to him talk about politics all the time. Gradually, he lost interest in that true crime subgenre I previously mentioned. He also sent me something that critiqued religion, and we discussed it for a while, both agreeing. 2 weeks later, he informed me that I could no longer come over to his house while his parents were home because they did not like me since I am not religious. His business accounts now included Christian in their bios, and since then, he has been identifying as Christian in his writings and social media, occasionally discussing church as well. Due to the restriction on visiting his home, I was unable to see him at all for several months. I also live with family and respectfully I am not fond of them. I did not want them to meet him just as I barely interacted with his parents. Well, they did not speak English anyway, but even if they did, I would not want to. Additionally, my room is small and there would be no chance for us to engage in the activities we did at his house in my apartment. The first time I did not see him for 4 months and some change. After that, another period of almost 4 months followed, then around 2 to 3 months, and then another 4 or so months, possibly 3. All the while, we lived at a medium distance from each other since neither of us could drive. In September, we attended a multi-day event together and I was anxious. I had been experiencing agoraphobia for a few months prior and felt nervous about the number of people. He was very kind to me in front of all those people, physically affectionate and not overly mean. However, he did pressure me to engage more and visit more places during the event and became upset when I needed to return to the hotel room to rest for a while. According to another woman I met and became friends with at the event, he spoke positively about me to her. When we were not together in person, he would frequently call me to read together articles about his interests, books he had to read for school, and occasionally books just for fun. There were many instances when I would not pay attention because, at the time, I was not in a good headspace and was experiencing dissociation. He would be very critical and judgmental of me for not having anything to contribute regarding what we had read. If I assured him that I understood, he would insist that I did not and would elaborate further. If I confirmed that I did understand, he would say, "Well, I want to explain it anyway," and would continue. When we broke up, he initiated it. I had not felt love for him since May of 2024, but it still upset me. It was my first relationship. He claimed that I was not intellectual or intelligent enough and that I could not engage in a simple discussion after reading something. He insisted that I simply did not say anything. I responded, well, because I knew that if I did say something, you would either tell me it was stupid or brush me off. He insisted that anything I would say would probably be stupid, but it was also foolish for him to be afraid to speak. This led him to his second reason: I am too introverted. He stated that it gave him the ick whenever we were in group conversations and I remained quiet. He did not appreciate that I needed to retreat to be alone whenever we were around people for too long. He insisted that I needed to be more outgoing and possess more stamina for social interactions. His final reason was that I no longer attracted him and that I was mid. We met up about a month and a half ago just to hang out, and he begged me to have sexual relations with him. He commented that my breasts looked larger and appealing, there was no actual change in size, and that I felt wonderful, despite having told me at the time of our breakup that I was consistently dry and bad at sex. When I inquired whether he had informed his 2 friends, who are also my friends, about our breakup, he said no. I asked him why, and he responded, if we get back together, it will be awkward to explain. I do not wish to get back together. I then asked, why break up if you think there is a chance of getting back together? His only response was a feeble excuse about it not being healthy at the moment and so on. It made no sense. He also seemed more patient and interested in what I had to say after the breakup. Why behave so differently now that we are no longer together? I do not understand. I am not seeking a diagnosis. I am merely searching for a possible explanation for this entire relationship and the behavior exhibited during it. Thank you. Story 4. Struggling to share my life with my boyfriend. It feels like he doesn't care, I lamented at 28. After trying to open up only to feel unheard, I'm left questioning if this relationship can truly grow. Can love flourish without emotional intimacy? Hello, everyone's. I wanted to express some feelings I have been experiencing for a while. I am a 28-year-old female, and my boyfriend is a 28-year-old male. Nationality: Indians. I am in a relationship with an incredible man and have been living with him for over a year now. We are quite compatible, and as a person, I truly like him a lot. As for myself, I tend to be quite reserved. Generally, I do not enjoy discussing myself and prefer to be more of a good listener. I have always found it challenging to share my true feelings with anyone in this world. This is something my very few closest friends have pointed out, indicating that I need to work on this aspect. It is not that I lack trusted people around me, rather, it is simply part of my personality. The most I have shared has been with my very close friends to whom I have confided. They have mentioned that it is a struggle to encourage me to talk about my issues, and I agree with this assessment. At times, I feel it is overwhelming not to share what is happening in my life at all. Based on the feedback from my friends, I have started trying to be more open about discussing myself. Since I have been living with my partner, I have attempted to share a few things with him, which took a lot of effort to reach that initial point. On a few occasions, I felt as if he did not care enough to listen to what I had to say. Since it took so much for me to get to that starting point, I occasionally feel he does not care much about me or what is happening in my life. If I had conveyed the same sentiments to my friends, they would have been extremely eager to hear about it since it was coming from me. Although we are very compatible and I truly love him, it bothers me that I cannot easily discuss matters concerning myself, which feels like a deal breaker for me since that is a basic expectation I have from very close friendships. Therefore, I believe it is crucial for my partner as well. I should be able to share my thoughts and experiences with him effortlessly. Perhaps that is too high of an expectation to place on someone, or perhaps it is the least I can expect from someone I genuinely love. To provide more context, I will share a few instances where I felt as if he did not care. Number 1, a couple of months ago, I was dealing with work-related issues within my team, and I briefly mentioned it to him via messages since I was at home. He indicated that we would discuss it that night. We did talk that evening, but he did not inquire about it. Maybe he forgot. That is my personal belief because he is somewhat forgetful. Nevertheless, it still hurts and gives me the impression that he did not care enough to initiate a follow-up conversation. I am not someone who forces a conversation. I will address a topic only if there is an interested party. If it appears that someone does not want to hear it, or if I get that impression, I will simply let it go. A couple of months later, I shared a few things with him in person, which was quite difficult for me to express, and I had not initially planned to share any of it. However, we happened to be talking and I began to express myself. This discussion was in person. Although it was not exclusively about my personal problems, it involved a mutual friend and some other related matters. I felt a sense of pride that day for being able to communicate with him openly. That was also the first time I found myself crying in front of him, which was liberating since I rarely cry in front of anyone. This experience deepened my emotional connection with him, as feeling emotionally close in a relationship is extremely important to me. He listened attentively, and for the first time I thought, oh, I can share things too. Let me clarify that he is not a poor listener. He does listen, but at times I feel he does not talk enough. With my friends, we chat extensively about anything and everything in the world. Perhaps I am expecting the same level of conversation from my partner, which might be too much, I know. Number 2, I would like to recount another instance where I felt he did not care. We reside in a flat, and I had an argument with the owner regarding some necessary repairs in our new apartment. After a lengthy discussion with the owner, I wanted to express my frustrations to my partner since we share the flat. It was late at night, and he indicated that he wanted to sleep and suggested we talk about it the next day. He apologized for being unable to listen to me vent in that moment. While it hurt me then, I accepted it. What truly upset me, however, was that even the following day and the day after that, he did not bother to inquire about it. As a result, I felt uncomfortable discussing it with him again and chose not to since I did not want to force him to listen to my complaints. I do not complain often, it is just that there are occasions when I become overly emotional. The sole reason I wanted to talk to him about it was that we share the flat, and any issue is a shared concern. It is not just my problem. After he did not ask about my work issues, I ceased sharing my personal problems, but I thought I would still cover the common problems. He may care but be forgetful, or perhaps he genuinely does not care. If it is the latter, I must reconsider our relationship, as emotional intimacy is important to me. The less I share with him, the less I will feel for him. I seek more friendship within our relationship. I am not here solely for the romantic gestures. I genuinely like him and care about him, and I want him to share his difficulties with me. I am sincerely interested in learning more about him, but because of these few instances, I do not feel that he is genuinely curious about me. Number 3, following a relevant theme, I had another tense conversation with the owner. I mean tense in that it was a formal discussion with detailed points, requiring significant energy from me. After this incident 4 days later, I briefly told my partner about it, as I felt it necessary to inform him. It took considerable effort to share this with him since he had previously declined to listen. I am reflecting on the fact that if I am not comfortable discussing shared concerns with him, it becomes even more challenging to talk about my personal issues, which pertain solely to me. That aspect troubles me. I still love him and want to be with him to resolve these issues, but only if he genuinely cares about me. I do not want to feel like a pushover. I do not want to share my problems if he is uninterested in discussing them. I also believe he might not be aware of how I have felt in these instances, and he deserves to know about my feelings. I am constantly reconsidering our relationship. Recently, I have also realized that many men, this does not apply to all men, of course, do not engage in deep conversations even with their friends. They gossip, meet up, play sports, watch shows, go on vacations, etc. but I feel they seldom talk about their feelings. They have become so accustomed to this that it has almost become second nature. If that has been their behavior for so long, how can they even comprehend our feelings or understand how crucial it is for us to talk about our issues? Unless we explicitly express this and make an extra effort to help guide them. I believe this is not their fault. It is likely related to how they have been raised. Men, please correct me if I am mistaken. Before reevaluating our relationship, I should make an effort to communicate my feelings to him, even though I know it will be a challenging task for me. He deserves to know everything I understand. Perhaps he genuinely cares deeply, but due to societal conditioning of men, they might struggle to grasp some emotions. I have shared my feelings, and there is no obligation for anyone to read the entire post. I understand it is lengthy. If anyone has read it to the end, I appreciate it, and if you have any helpful comments, please feel free to share. Could you please guide me on the best way to resolve this? Thank you. To summarize, my boyfriend and I are experiencing communication difficulties, making it challenging to share things with him, leading me to feel as if he does not care about me. I genuinely want to address and resolve this issue. Story 5. I broke up with my first love after a year of toxic turmoil at just 24. I couldn't keep pretending, I told her, even as my heart shattered. I walked away from the controlling chaos, but now every day feels like a grieving nightmare. Did I make the right choice? I need advice, world. My heart has been broken before, but never like this. I was in a relationship for just over a year. I am 24 and so is she. We started working together and I developed a significant crush on her. I tried to move on, but we worked together and I am a girl. This was my first experience having feelings for another girl, which made me extremely nervous. Not to mention, I grew up in a very religious family, so I felt scared. However, my feelings for her continued to grow stronger, so I pursued her wholeheartedly. I expressed my feelings to her, and we began spending time together, quickly becoming inseparable. Within just a few days, we professed our love for each other, and I ended up moving in with her and her family, mother, stepfather, and her 2 brothers after just 2 months of dating. Our relationship gradually became more and more toxic. The first major incident occurred during a trip to Disneyland with her family. I was so excited. I absolutely loved Disneyland and could not wait to experience it with her. One night while at the park, we separated from her family for a little while, just the two of us. We went into a restaurant to grab dinner, which was extremely busy, causing confusion about where to order. Overwhelmed by the crowd, she walked out of the restaurant. I followed, but she was frustrated with me for not helping her figure out what to do since I had eaten there in the past, albeit I could not remember it well. I suggested that we might return to the hotel to take a break and come back later. This suggestion upset her more as she felt that we had spent a lot of money to be there and was frustrated with me for wanting to leave for the hotel. At that moment, I began to cry. I am very sensitive and didn't know how to help her. My crying only made her more upset. She ended up leaving the park, and I was trying to keep up with her as she walked ahead of me quickly, tears streaming down my face. We finally talked for a while outside of the park before going back inside. 2 days later, we were driving back home. I was sitting on the hotel bed scrolling through Instagram or something similar, and she started to appear upset as if she were angry with me. When I asked her what was wrong, she said I was acting strangely with my phone, like I was hiding something. I assured her I was not, that I would never cheat on anyone. Despite my reassurances, she remained upset with me, and when we got into the car with her family to start driving home, I began to tear up. I felt sad about how our vacation had gone. We had some happy moments, but overall I felt anxious. Her mother turned around to ask where everyone wanted to eat and noticed my tearful eyes. My girlfriend grabbed my face to look at me, saw my tears, shook her head, and looked out the window. She was upset because she thought it was selfish of me to make it about me when she was feeling down. This was a recurring issue. She would become angry with me when she was upset, I would cry, and she would accuse me of making everything about myself and not caring about her feelings. That was incredibly frustrating for me because the reason I would cry was that I genuinely cared about her feelings, often more than my own. Anyway, we didn't speak throughout the drive home. I cried, she cried, and we remained silent. We stopped 2 hours from home to get gas and grab some snacks. My girlfriend and I stayed in the car while she began to cry harder and started hitting her head, just punching herself. It was terrifying, heartbreaking, and awful. I kept asking her to stop and tried to pull her hands away from her head, but she told me to leave her alone and not touch her. I ended up apologizing for making it seem like I didn't care, insisting that I wasn't intending to make it about me. We reconciled. I have 2 friends I am fairly close to, and whenever I wanted to spend time with them, she never explicitly said I couldn't, but she was not supportive of it. I could tell she was anxious and didn't want me to go. As a result, I became very distant from those 2 friends during the relationship. I no longer enjoyed spending time with them as I used to because I felt anxious the whole time, worrying about my girlfriend and whether she was angry with me. I was in a group chat with my coworkers. When the group chat was created by one of my coworkers, I showed it to her. There was one guy in that group chat whom I worked with. I had never even talked to him or met him. She became upset because she thought a guy shouldn't have my number saved. She hit herself 2 more times after the Disneyland trip. One of those times, she became upset when I received a notification that a guy I used to have a fling with followed me. I showed her, blocked the account, reassured her that nothing was happening and that I had not spoken to him, and asked if she was upset. She denied being upset, but she clearly was. She wouldn't touch me. Instead, she sat across the bed from me in silence. Growing increasingly frustrated, I wondered why she couldn't just communicate her feelings so I could reassure her, and we could move on. The situation escalated into a fight where she started choking herself and declared she was seriously going to hurt herself. There is much more to share. These are just a few instances from the bad parts of our relationship. I was constantly anxious during that time because I feared the next bad thing would occur. My heart aches for her because she has endured a great deal of trauma. She has issues, and I understand the roots of some of them. All I ever wanted was to be there for her, to provide her with all my love and support. She required a lot of reassurance, and I always offered it to her as best as I could. I reminded her multiple times every day that I loved her. I would text her as soon as I arrived at work, when I left work, what I was doing when we were apart. Typically, the only time we weren't together was during work and any chance I had. I forgave her repeatedly when she became angry. However, there were many joyful moments in our relationship. I loved her family and they loved me. She was my best friend. We were both very unhealthily attached to one another. I tried relentlessly to give her all the love I could. I endured so much. I helped her financially when she was unemployed for a few months, and I was glad to do it. I always spoke highly of her, even during tough times. I didn't tell anyone about our problems to protect her. I genuinely invested everything into that relationship. Exactly 1 week ago today, I ended it. We got into a fight. I had been vaping for a year and a half and I wanted to quit. She had been vaping for years as well. We decided to quit together. When she dropped off a gift, she asked me to be her bridesmaid. She is getting married this June. I hit my friend's vape. I informed her and she said it was okay. I felt guilty and promised her I wouldn't do it again. A few days later, I hit my coworker's vape at work. I felt terrible. I knew I shouldn't have. I was terrified to tell her, but I did. She was furious. During this argument, something inside me clicked. I had experienced so much anxiety in that relationship. It felt like I was walking on a breaking bridge, holding on as tightly as I could. I began to wonder how I could forgive her for so much, yet she could not offer me any understanding. I recognized that I should not have hit the vape. That was on me, and I understood why she was upset, especially since I had told her I wouldn't do it again. However, when I tried to talk to her, she pulled out her phone and started watching YouTube Reels, ignoring me while crying. I stayed awake all night knowing what I had to do. I had to walk away from the person I love the most in this world. So I did. The next morning, I got up and got ready for work. As I was blow-drying my hair, she entered the room and asked me a question. I told her I didn't think I could continue in the relationship. I could not be with her any longer. She yelled at me to stop and forcefully yanked out my blow-dryer cord, pulling it out of the wall, which struck my finger. I told her it hurt. She hadn't intended to hit me with the cord, but her actions were aggressive. Our relationship felt very controlling. I went to work that day and we didn't text. When I returned home, it was awful. We argued and she begged me to stay. I stood my ground despite how difficult it was. I packed my things and she even helped me pack, and then I was gone. It has been 7 days since I have seen or spoken to her. It feels as though I am truly dying. My heart has never ached like this before. I keep wondering if I made the wrong decision. Did I? Every relationship has its problems. Each person has issues. I am not a perfect angel, but I tried my absolute hardest to show her healthy love. I could not emotionally handle it any longer. However, being apart from her is the most difficult thing in the world. It feels as though a knife has been plunged deep into my stomach, and I don't even know how to live without her. It is like I am grieving someone who has died. How do you survive this? How do you move forward? How will I find the strength to continue? Did I make the right choice? Story 6. I accused my wife of cheating and sent her boss a message saying she was a liar. After hiring a pie, I discovered her late meetings were actually to surprise me with VIP tickets for our anniversary. Now I've ruined everything. How do I fix this? As the title indicates, I made a serious mistake and sent a message to my wife's boss, claiming that she was a liar, that she had cheated on me, and that he should neither trust nor employ her. Before you all criticize me, please let me explain, as I genuinely want to resolve this situation. Background: I have always been highly suspicious of my partners ever since I was 15 and was first cheated on by my girlfriend at the time. That experience deeply affected me, and it took another 5 years before I even dated someone again due to the profound sense of betrayal I felt. When I finally did date someone again in college, she also cheated on me. Both of these experiences devastated me. I went through the typical denial phase that everyone experiences, even when the signs are evident. I frequently told myself, oh, they're just spending time with that guy because he's their friend, it's harmless, don't overthink it. I rationalized, oh, she's only staying over because her ride was late or her car broke down, there's nothing more to it. or she's not flirting with him, that's just how they communicate. However, despite my attempts to be the nice guy and give the benefit of the doubt, I eventually discovered the harsh truth. They were cheating on me. Fast forward to last month. I have been with my wife for 3 years and she has been wonderful to me. I love her more than I ever thought possible, yet I began to notice the signs again. She would be working late unexpectedly, returning well after dark. When I asked her what was happening or why she was working late, her responses were consistently vague. She would mention some project that she couldn't discuss that required her to stay late. I wanted to believe her, I truly did. But after 2 instances of betrayal, I found it difficult to take her at her word. The old saying, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, was playing in my mind. I was not prepared to risk a fool me thrice scenario. I couldn't bear the thought of being cheated on again and living in denial until I walked into my home and found my wife in bed with another man. So, I hired a private investigator. Let me clarify, I desperately wanted to be wrong. I hoped this would turn out to be a complete waste of money, and I fully expected that it would be. However, I needed to know the truth, so I hired him. He assured me that he had conducted such investigations many times before and that I wasn't a bad person for doing this. She would never find out. Everything seemed fine until last week when I met with him to hear what he had discovered. I expected to receive updates about work projects and late meetings, but my worst fears were confirmed. She was not at work. Instead, she was out meeting a man I had never seen before. This was not a one-time occurrence. For 2 weeks straight, she met with this same man every day at various locations, including restaurants and an office. The investigator mentioned that he couldn't discern what they were discussing because he wasn't close enough to overhear, but he had numerous photographs of them together, including images of them hugging. I felt an overwhelming surge of rage, the kind you feel when you are furious at someone for what they have done. In that moment, I wanted to vandalize his office. I had been cheated on again by someone I loved, someone I had married. All I could think was, not this time. In the past, I had been the fool, but not this time. This time, I was determined to come out on top, to be the one exposing the truth. I paid the investigator and left. I called a friend of mine, someone I have known since high school, and explained everything. Even before I provided specific details, he uttered, "Oh God, not again." He understood just from what I had said, even without seeing the photos. We both realized the gravity of the situation. We then devised a plan, and this is where everything began to unravel. Yesterday was our wedding anniversary, a day meant to celebrate our love, only there was no love, just deception. What better time to expose her than on that day? I set everything in motion. We planned to go out for a nice dinner, enjoy a wonderful evening, and then when we returned home, I would reveal that the celebration was not for our marriage, but rather a celebration of my revenge. At that moment, my friend would emerge from the closet with the photos of her and the other man hugging and would capture her reaction as she was confronted. While I was dining with her, he would send pre-written messages I had crafted to her boss on her Facebook account and to her parents, all stating that she was a deceitful individual who could not be trusted because she was merely a cheating spouse. The exact wording was much more explicit and hurtful, but you get the idea. As we arrived home, just as I was about to reveal everything, she paused to say that she had something to tell me. I thought, here it comes. She was finally going to confess to cheating on me. I wanted to interrupt her and execute my plan first, but even in my anger, I still loved this woman. A voice in my mind urged me to listen. Perhaps I was mistaken. This is where everything spiraled out of control. She reached into her purse and retrieved tickets for the Denver Nuggets game on Saturday. I am a huge Nuggets fan, and she knows that. Not just any tickets, though. They were VIP box seats, complete with a flight included. Apparently, she has a cousin I have never met who is a partner at a major law firm in Los Angeles that possesses a private box. She had been meeting with him to convince them to allow her to use the box so that my friends and I could attend. The law firm doesn't have a particular interest in basketball. They generally utilize the box for business purposes and other events, and they had no plans for the game this weekend. Understandably, obtaining these tickets was no small feat for her. She had to attend various meetings with her cousin and other partners at the firm to negotiate this arrangement. That's why it required weeks and why she kept meeting with them repeatedly. She was working hard to secure the tickets for our anniversary. The investigator only provided me with half the story. As you can imagine, my friend did not jump out. I was in a state of full panic and had no idea what to do or say, so I pretended that everything was okay and continued with the evening as if nothing had happened. I had purchased a beautiful diamond necklace that I intended to use to taunt her, saying, "This could have been yours, but cheating spouses don't receive gifts." In truth, it was more than I could afford, and I had planned to return it. However, upon seeing the gift and learning the actual story, I realized I had to give it to her. To my relief, she loved it, but I could not confess what I had done. Once she went to bed, I logged into her Facebook and deleted everything I had posted. I recalled the messages I sent to her parents, and it appears that no one saw the Facebook post, nor did her parents receive the message. However, the email to her boss could not be recalled, and I was met with the message indicating that this email could not be recalled. He opened it. He knows. I am at a loss about what to do now. I sent it from her email account. Luckily, she has taken the rest of the week off for our anniversary. I have been checking, yet her boss has not replied yet, however he has seen it. On Monday, when she returns to work, he will likely bring it up and she will understand what a colossal piece of garbage I am. I don't even know what to say. Sorry, honey, I thought you ruined my life, so I ruined yours. That certainly will not solve anything. Every time I see her, I feel an overwhelming sense of stress and panic. Thus, I am coming here to both confess my actions and seek advice on how to rectify the situation. Should I contact her boss, explain everything, and beg him to remain silent? Or should I say it was merely a poorly conceived late April Fool's joke? Should I confess to her or wait until after our anniversary since I have already caused so much damage? I should at least allow her to enjoy our anniversary weekend, right? How can I fix this?